Hello, and thanks for joining this edition of the Mediaocean Current, our monthly-ish webinar series. Today, we're going to cover Flashtalking Creative Intelligence. I'm Aaron Goldman, CMO for Mediaocean and Flashtalking, and I'm excited for all the great content we have lined up. So I'm going to kick things off in just a second with some new research that we published this month through Tech Validate on the impact of creative and advertising. Then I'm going to hand it off to Ben Kartzman to reintroduce Flashtalking. And then we have Grant Parker, who will walk through how we're orienting our solutions to unleash the power of creative. And then Alexa George and Becky Hatley will show how we're using AI and automation to power creative intelligence, including a product demo. And then I'll come back at the end to leave you with some lovely parting gifts, including this cool t-shirt. So stay tuned. So let's start now with our research as a backdrop for the trends that we're seeing in the market and the biggest challenges for marketers to address. So first, with the methodology, we used Tech Validate to conduct a survey. We had 100 respondents, global marketing professionals, and it covered 10 different industries and pretty well split, as you can see, among the regions geographically. Our goal was to really uncover the biggest opportunities in advertising going forward. And to start, we asked what the most important campaign variable would be to drive brand growth and business outcomes. Given everything that's happening with data deprecation, privacy regulation, antitrust, we wanted to kind of see sort of where the incremental lift was going to come from. And here's the key finding. So when we asked which aspect of advertising had the most potential in the future among audience targeting, bid management, and creative personalization, creative was ranked highest, almost 3-to-1 over the other options. So it's clear that creative is the rocket ship that's going to drive campaign performance on into the future. And so there's some sort of good news and some bad news about that as we dive deeper into the research here. So good news is that while creative was ranked highest for potential and kind of being the most underrated, it was also ranked #1 for being most disconnected from media and challenging to manage. So, the imperative that emerges becomes integrating creative ad tech into omnichannel media workflow to optimize performance. And of course, spoiler alert, that's what our team's going to talk about today when we get into the Flashtalking portion. We had some more, contradictions arise in the research, but of course, we only see these as opportunities. 96% of respondents said that creative will be more important in advertising campaigns over the next 10 years, but 87% said consumers are becoming numb to messages that don't speak to their specific needs. So, clearly the impetus is to personalize creative to meet consumers in the moment. 97% of marketers reported that personalized ads drive higher conversions and customer engagement, but 85% are seeing a gap between creative and media execution, which means that the right ads are not reaching the right people at the right time. So why is that? What's holding us back? Well, based on our research, here were the top 3 challenges that marketers have with implementing personalized ads. The first was mentioned by 91% of respondents. There's a lack of insights and intelligence, and this is a topic we'll unpack quite a bit later in the webinar here with Becky and Alexa. And the second is that there are siloed teams. 90% of marketers said that this is leading to inefficiency and slow go-to-market. And then there's disparate technology. So 73% said that brand messages have become increasingly disconnected. And Grant's going to sort of pick this apart in his section. So I won't belabor the point here other than to say that, again, this kind of underscores the need for creative ad tech that's integrated into the omnichannel workflow. And then going one step further, marketers can make their media work better by making it work harder. So 79% said that personalized ads are part of working media, which means it's kind of considered part of the budget, and therefore incremental gains in performance can be priced into the equation. We actually have an ROI calculator that you can use to kind of suss this out for yourself, and Grant's going to share that in just a bit here. So for now, I'll close with a QR code that you can use to view the entire infographic. I think we'll drop a link into the chat as well. It's titled Breaking Through the Digital Ad Ceiling with Creative Personalization. And, the message from this research is pretty clear. The next big gains in advertising will come from creative, and creative ad tech is needed to execute within the media workflow. So with that in mind, I'll turn things over to Ben to talk about how we're teeing up Flashtalking to deliver on this imperative for brands and their agency partners.
Awesome. Thanks, AG. Appreciate that. So I'm gonna take as we go to the next one, I'm gonna take a quick little stroll down memory lane, which I think, both is supportive of what we've seen in the importance of creative going forward, but also how we're setting ourselves up for the future. So, Flashtalking is one of the first, companies to do dynamic creative. And as we've evolved over time, we've invested in a bunch of technology that is, enabling us to run smarter, faster, better creative across all channels. So if you go back and look at, in 2018, the acquisition of SpongeCell, which is where I came from, which was another company exclusively focused on dynamic creative. At the same time, Flashtalking was relaunching its ad serving technology, complete with upgraded video ad serving technology. And so that sort of deep investment on creative, on dynamic, on personalization. And then we didn't know it at the time, but Mediaocean was acquiring 4C for its social capabilities. And then as we joined forces together to now add social as a capability on top of all of the other creative and other channels that we were already serving into, was a huge boon and a big opportunity for Flashtalking. So when you think about the work that we've done, some of the add-ons we've done, acquiring Drishem, which was more on the AI side, acquiring Imposium, which gave us unparalleled video rendering capabilities to do even more dynamic creative in video ahead of anybody else in the market. Bring that all together would lead us to today, and we feel like this is the perfect opportunity for us to do what we're doing, which is reintroducing Flashtalking with all of the great stuff that we've been pulling together into the product, into the platform, into our offering. So when you take all of that, and we took the opportunity to take a step back and say, what is it that wakes us up in the morning? Where do we think we are going to be 3-5 years from now? What do we think we can do for the industry that will have a real material impact? And we believe it is to unleash the power of creative in advertising. Aaron just showed you the data of the importance of creative, where creative is going. The role creative will play in the future, we believe, is outsized relative to media, and the data supports it. And you also have to think about this in the context of the consumer. What does the consumer want? In a world where consumers want more personalized information, it's coming where they're now expecting every piece of content they touch, whether it's an advertisement or user-generated content or professionally generated content, that consumer wants that to be something that is relevant to them, that they're interested in. That is now an expectation that consumers have. So when you think about the power of creative and the type of personalization, interest that we can bring to creative, that's what we're really, really excited about. And it can take on many, many shapes and forms across all different channels. When you think of the mission and you think about what we're setting out to do today, this week, this month, this year, next year, we are looking to be the leading independent ad tech platform for creative personalization and intelligence across all marketing channels. There are some key words that I want to pluck out of there. Across all marketing channels, that is being omni-channel. Think back to the timeline I just shared with you. To be able to run your creative strategy and to be able to execute it inside of social, inside of video, CTV, display, wherever, audio, digital out of home, wherever you as a consumer are going to consume content, wherever you as a marketer are going to market your products. We want to be the company that helps you get there and helps you place the right creative using a personalized message. So pick out the word personalization. Again, relevance is critical. It is now expected of consumers, and it is something that all marketers want to be able to enable for their brands. And then, of course, intelligence. That is a critical word. That is the role that AI will play and you'll see some of that as we get into this demo. And the role that we believe AI plays is more on the intelligence and understanding creative than it is on the generation of creative, especially as a big brand marketer with a mass audience, which is largely who we work with. So it's a really exciting time for us to be doing what we're doing. We're excited about our independence. We continue to believe that in the power of the open internet and the role that we play. And yeah, we're excited to take you down this path and share now the narrative and the story that we've pieced together to help articulate where we think the industry is headed. So I will with that, I will hand it off to Grant. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Appreciate it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about specifics of translating some of those statements and some of the research that Aaron laid out into the opportunities that we see in front of us for our clients, for advertisers, but also for consumers, and then get into some of the challenges that people are running into trying to take advantage of those opportunities and how we're overcoming those challenges. So the first thing I think is important to kind of reflect on the waves that we've seen of growth in the industry over the last 20 years or so. There's been the proliferation of online advertising, and then the rise of programmatic, and the kind of shift to bid management and audience targeting. And those have largely really focused on improving price and placement. But many clients are kind of seeing that programmatic has started to mature, and that while these curves have provided tremendous growth, incremental lift is getting harder to attain, and advertisers are really looking for, what's the next big thing that's going to drive growth. And, we really feel strongly based on the research that we're seeing, and whether that's third-party research from Nielsen or the research that Aaron shared that we did ourselves, that creative is the next lever to pull. And it's funny because creative was really the core start of the industry, right? If you think back in the pre-digital days, creative was the driver of advertising success. And as we've gotten into digital, it's really been focused again on price and targeting, and less on quality of the placement. What are you saying to the consumer, and how is that motivating them? But if you look at the research, 65% of those that we surveyed said that they believe that the future is all about creative, and much more so than audiences or bidding. But what we're seeing is there's a gap between creative and media. And 85% of the marketers we surveyed are seeing this, and there's real implications to it. There can be siloed teams, processes, and technology. There's inefficiencies with escalating production costs when trying to bring creative and media strategy together, and then that can also lead to slow go-to-market. So as a result of this, what we're seeing is that the brand message, which is your creative, has become increasingly kind of disconnected from how consumers actually experience it in their world, which is media. And to add to that, consumers are feeling this firsthand, right? Even though there's a lot of different people and personas and groups out there, they're becoming numb when they're feeling like there's repetitive and irrelevant messages that don't really speak to their needs or their preferences or desires. And when brands tried to do that in the past, it's really dramatically increased production costs, or it's made it difficult to execute at scale. And to add to that, there's also been problems with visibility. What creative's running where? How do I get insights on what's working for different people, different moments? And the cost to try and extract those insights has made it untenable to really get to the intelligence that advertisers want out of their creative strategy. So our clients and advertisers who are feeling this pain have started to really focus on a key piece of their ad tech platform called creative ad tech to finally solve these problems efficiently at scale and focus on creative intelligence, automation, the things we just talked about. And the interesting thing too in our research was that 79% of those surveyed said that they view these investments in creative technology as part of their working media budgets, and something that can actually drive working media. And they're not just doing this in silos. They're really thinking about this from a consumer journey perspective, whether that's display, video, social. They're covering all formats, even CTV, and doing this across the full consumer journey. And that's really the focus of Flashtalking. We believe that our mission is to unleash the power of creative to make media work better, to work harder, and ultimately to just plain work to drive business growth. And this isn't a new concept. The idea of personalizing digital creative or creative as a whole is not new, but it's ultimately failed in the past because 3 key areas were missing. And we really focused on those areas, whether through people, process, or technology like artificial intelligence. And so that's the 3 areas are automation to connect the silos that we're seeing between creative and media, relevance to connect the message to the right person, place, and moment, and then intelligence to connect the data that drives insights to becoming actions. So let me kind of give you a specific example of how we do this. So you can imagine a world where Flashtalking takes a creative asset that can be built into a framework, and then that creative asset can be combined with automated feed inputs like audiences, products, prices, weather, etc. And we can do that to produce thousands of ads in minutes. Then once we have all those ads, we can proceed to the next step of applying relevance and making sure that we have decision trees that automate who sees what ad, ensuring that that's part of the consumer experience and flows with the strategy, but it still allows you to have the scale you need with all those different creative versions. And then lastly, we automate the tagging and data collection of all the different components of the ad. So this allows for transparency of the creative insights that can power kind of the next wave of improvements and optimizations. And this is a really powerful feedback loop that can be AI driven, where the AI is automatically identifying all the elements of the ad across thousands of versions, surfacing the insights, but also using that to fuel and determine what ad is going to resonate best in the next impression. So this can seem overwhelming, but I want to ensure that we've kind of simplified this for our clients too and made it really easy to execute. So that you can think of this as 4 basic steps. You've got create, automate, activate, and iterate. And those 4 steps can be broken down one level further so that people can kind of understand what it really takes. You have the idea that you're going to bring some sort of creative tool to it, whether that's our tools or third-party tools and industry standards. That forms creative concepts. And so we integrate with a lot of third-party tools to allow those creative concepts to then be made in a framework that can be personalized. That leads to the creative versioning that you just saw an example of, the application of those AI-driven labels, and still the ability for brands to have control and review and approve the creative. And we're doing that while integrating with existing advertiser or third-party data feeds. From there, we move into activation, where we've built dozens and dozens of automated integrations with media partners and activation platforms, so that you're not just building the creative in a silo, but it's actually flowing through directly into the media plan, eliminating the complexity and delivering the ad within the media environment. And then the last step of iterate is all about collecting all the data in a way that can be used to really drive insights and optimizations. And we do that within our platform, but we also integrate with an API to clients' existing dashboards and data lakes. So to give you some confidence that this is real and that our approach is something you can trust, it's been recognized by industry groups and also our customers, which we're really proud of, both as a best-in-class technology, but also the team that supports it. Because we're asking, the industry to take a step forward here. And we know that it's partly about the technology, but also about change management and adopting new processes, and we're really proud of the team and technology together. So you'll see the insights there. The next thing I want to call out is the results that we're seeing. It's most important that this is actually resulting in better campaign performance. And that's kind of 2 different levers. One is, how can we save time and money? So we've been able to reduce the production costs by 500% for many of our clients. on average, significant millions of dollars of savings in creative production costs. That's also led to faster go-to-market in terms of the creative launch and campaign setup. And then most importantly, in addition to saving that time and cost, we're actually seeing this resonate better with consumers. So on average, we're seeing a 3x increase in return on ad spend because the message that's presented to consumers resonates better and is more relevant. I think all of us as consumers would say, I would prefer to have an ad that speaks to me, that is more relevant, and therefore they're more likely to engage and convert. But obviously you don't have to take our word for it. We've built an ROI calculator that you can see on the screen here. You can take a QR shot of this or find a link to it. But what this does is it allows you to make this kind of calculation on your own. So you can plug in different media CPMs, expectations of performance, what you think a more relevant creative experience could result in for your business, your own media budgets, and then it will tell you what an expected ROI could be. So I encourage you all to do that while we go through this webinar or afterwards. So hopefully we've been able to demonstrate, how Flashtalking can help break through the next ceiling of advertising and prepare for what's next by unleashing the power of creative. Going back to the research, I think 96% of the marketers we surveyed said that creative will be more important in the next 10 years for their advertising campaigns. And so we believe that this is the next wave and the next phase of growth for the industry. So I'm going to turn it over next to Alexa and Becky, who are going to give you an under the hood view of how we're deriving some of this creative intelligence. Thanks, everyone.
Wonderful. Thanks, Grant. Hi, everyone. Let's explore creative intelligence a little bit more and understand what that means for you. So as Grant mentioned earlier, this creative media gap is producing an environment where your brand message is becoming increasingly disconnected from how and where your consumers are experiencing that message in their world. And this is a consequence of a lack of creative intelligence. 91% of you, to be exact, reported blind spots when it comes to creative intelligence. And what this means is that your brands are struggling to understand what creative attributes are truly resonating with your audiences across channels and across the varying context in which that message is received. Now, how did this happen, right? The industry has done a really impressive job of infusing intelligence into each step of the media workflow. They've got strategic planning, audience creation, inventory management, and measurement solutions have followed suit. We're ingesting every last detail from every stage of that process in order to understand what works, except for creative. Although time and time again, it's been proven that creative is the most influential part of the consumer experience, creative performance is still being condensed to the point of ambiguity, which is further emphasizing these blind spots. And this challenge is manifesting from multiple angles, right? So one is endless contemplation. Creative indicators, they're typically implemented as a lengthy stream of underscores in the creative file name. A lot of times you got to deal with character limits. It seems pretty harmless, but what's happening is that your creative strategists are forced to deliberate and prioritize what creative elements they believe to be the most influential. And ultimately, they're answering the question that they're trying to ask before anything has even hit the market. Next, we're dealing with unsustainable labor. It takes a considerable amount of time to label your creatives in a way that makes the data manageable. To find anything meaningful, your analysts are stuck creating custom match tables, parsing out the creative names into individual columns, and then they're pivoting that data in 1,001 different ways to look for patterns that tell a story. And along with that comes with a lack of consistency. A lot of implementation teams are dedicated to specific channels. And most of the time they're using their own creative taxonomies because that's what works best for them. But what that means is that those insights can't be easily captured at a higher level across channels and across timeframes and even campaigns. Lastly, marketers are really facing an analysis paralysis here. We've never been richer with the depth and granularity of the data that we have today, but it can be really overwhelming to comb through an endless sea of data that isn't organized in a way to generate anything meaningful. Now, what do we need to solve that problem, right? It seems like a big opportunity. And what can the intelligent resources that we already have available offer so that we can put creative intelligence in the spotlight? Well, the first is standardization. Correct that lack of consistency and get shared naming conventions across all your teams, channels, formats, even campaigns. Next is scalability. If your creative metadata is going to work for you and not against you, it needs to be inclusive and comprehensive. Then you can alleviate your creative strategists from answering their own questions and scale those creative labels beyond what character limits accept or what appears obvious. And this may go without saying, but acceleration. If you're going to scale, you want to do it fast. And AI can help you automate mundane and tedious tasks, such as creative labeling. And that way your teams can get campaigns live sooner without sacrificing any data output. Last is digestible and actionable insights. If your goal is going to be to maximize campaign performance through your creative, you're going to need a digestible way to understand the impact of each of those creative elements, ideally with minimal to no data processing. Now, that sounds great, right? But in a perfect world, what would that actually look like in a real life application? Okay, so let's use this example. Let's say you're an auto advertiser and you have 5 unique audiences and a library full of content. And then your question is, how do you know what creative is right for each? Well, you can easily assume, right? Your family audience is most likely going to resonate with the messages you have around comfort, vehicle size, entertainment. But some of your audiences, not so much. You may need to learn more about them. And as we touched on earlier, reporting can tell you the versions that drove the most engagement. But even if you invest time into manual data manipulation, you might not really get to the crux of why. And without that, your creative development is going to rely on assumptions and guesswork. But with a holistic creative intelligence solution, you can then identify trends within the content. And then when you know what type of content is consistently performing well for your consumers, then your creative team is empowered to generate new and better creative that emphasizes what you know is proven to work. Then you produce more relevant and more compelling experiences that are tailored to each of your audiences. Now, this is not just an innovative proposal. This is a real capability that Flashtalking is proud to present. Our creative intelligence solution consists of 4 main features, and each one solves one of those 4 key challenges, but through one cohesive workflow. Creative taxonomy is a tool where you can develop and maintain a standardized yet custom naming convention for creative metadata. Creative labels are a combination of both custom and off-the-shelf descriptors that you can apply to your creative as metadata across formats and at scale. Auto classification, that's an AI-based tool that automatically assigns creative labels with image recognition technology. This minimizes manual labor and then accelerates your speed to market. Creative insights, that's our easily accessible and digestible reporting dashboard, highlighting performance by label and by audience. You can optimize your creative strategy in real time without having to export any data. So that's great, but how does it all work together? I'm going to walk you through that now. So starting with creative taxonomy, this is a tool designed for consistency and organization. Here you have the flexibility to select categories that align to your learning objectives. Now, what are those? We offer 2 different types of categories. The first is universal, which consists of 3 label categories. These are off the shelf and ready to use at your disposal with the help of machine learning. The first is general content. This captures elements such as your background scene, your object count, type, if there are any people in your ad, and how many. Design. This accounts for elements such as your CTA properties, your logo properties, and your text properties. And then vertical specific. This ensures that any elements that are critical to your brand based on the vertical that you fall within are captured, such as an engine type or an offer type for an auto brand. The second is custom. Now, this offers opportunity for advertiser-specific labels. That's cool. What does that mean? It allows you to prescribe any bespoke objects or themes that are specific to your brand, such as a vehicle model name, a competitive conquest, or a value prop. And once you have your categories curated, the creative labels are defined across each category to reflect the content attributes within your creative. So how are these different? Well, the categories say, I want to recognize my different vehicles. I want to recognize the different color of my vehicles. The label tells the system to recognize that the vehicle model in this ad is a roulette. The vehicle color in this ad is silver, and the background scene is a desert. But you can also capture minor elements that you may not assume have impact, such as logo color, object size, or even the direction the vehicle is facing, things that you wouldn't think to put in a creative file name. Now, to ensure you don't sacrifice any quantity for speed, our AI-based auto classification engine automatically assigns the creative labels for each of your defined categories across all creatives, formats, and channels accounted for within your content library. With the click of a button, the engine will recognize the background scene, the logo position, the text color, and it can even be trained to recognize your advertiser-specific items, such as vehicle model name. And lastly, where it all comes together is our Creative Insights dashboard. This is where you'll find visual data points that you can act on in real time. The dashboard ranks each of your creative labels by the impact based on the metric of your choosing. So if that's conversion rate, that's conversion rate. If it's click-through rate, that's click-through rate. This data can be layered on top of your custom audiences, or it can be layered on top of Claritas Prism segments, which are built off of reliable geodemographic data points that are complementary within our platform. So in the example here, right, how do I use this? What does this mean? You'll see that the SUV label is performing at a higher than average conversion rate with young families. But it's performing below average for eco-friendlies, right? So what that instantly tells you is that you can go ahead and maybe decrease the weighting on that eco-friendly audience for any ads that include an SUV. It's instantly telling you what creative elements are influencing your consumers' decisions based on their circumstances. And it gives you the proof that you need to go and enhance that experience and inspire them to engage with your brand. Now, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Becky Hatley, and she's going to walk you all through an in-platform demo of the Creative Intelligence solution.
Awesome. Thanks for this, Alexa. We're going to start out on our Creative Hub, which is where all of our products are accessible. So let's take a look at kind of how at Flashtalking we're looking to solve this lack of creative intelligence that marketers are really struggling with in our platform. So on the product team, when we were trying to pinpoint, the exact challenges that folks were having in this space, we really landed on those 4 key elements that Alexa mentioned at the start of her slides. And it really kind of helped us to shape an offering that we think is extremely robust and flexible. So the first 2 challenges that we're going to highlight are the lack of standardization and consistency across the team. So as Alexa mentioned, our solve for that is our advertiser taxonomy. And for this, I'm going to navigate to our advertiser settings section of our platform where the taxonomy is managed. So, creative strategists and analysts struggle with the complex character codes that they're asked to build directly into the creative naming conventions just for capturing insights. They're cumbersome, they're super error prone, and ultimately garnering insights for them post-launch can be taxing. So Not to mention it's going to require brands and agencies to develop those, the hypothesis prior to launch on what elements we think are going to be influential and, ultimately need to be tracked for that analysis. And, honestly, it's going to leave insights unknowingly on the table for brands. On top of that, different teams are typically used across channels. So there's going to be inconsistencies with the naming conventions, meaning that whoever's doing that post-analysis process is probably going to have trouble capturing those insights across channels and formats. So with the Flashtalking advertiser creative taxonomy, we created a framework that is ready to go out of the box for any advertiser, while also allowing for complete customization for any client as needed. So we wanted the solution to work for you however you needed it to, because we know that every brand and agency is different. So we have thousands of universal categories and labels that are available, while also supporting individual advertiser-specific labels as well whenever needed. So let's dive into this example of the taxonomy, and we'll kind of talk through how it can be customized and configured for any brand's needs. So first, I'm going to jump over here to our advertiser settings to kind of call out where the vertical can be selected. So again, the taxonomy is brand specific within our platform. So every brand can have a vertical assigned. And what that does, it's going to help us determine the verticalized content that's available for your advertiser. So this allows us to go a level deeper with universal options for advertisers, but that are more tailored for your brand. So automotive clients will have things like vehicle class and color, interior features, details, things like that. At the same time, we'll have all of those other universal options as well that Alexa mentioned. Things like, details about the people that are in the ads. How many are there? What are their gaze directions and their emotions? As well as things like background scenery and more of those generic options like background color and logo positioning and attributes and things. So for managing the taxonomy, we can simply export. And what that'll do is it will open a spreadsheet where all of your configuration for your taxonomy can be controlled by you and your team. So here we can see all of the different categories that are available, as well as all of the labels within those categories that are available. So again, as I mentioned, we have several thousand that are available for use out of the box, not to mention all of the ones that you can add for the specific advertiser as well. Speaking of that, if we wanted to add additional advertiser labels, it's as easy as coming in here to the advertiser labels section and adding new line items. So for instance, for this advertiser, it's an automotive client. So we have a few unique brand models for the client. To add additional ones, we would just come in and say, I want to add a couple more labels here. I'll just say this is the Flashtalker 3000. And this is the Flashtalker 3001. So from here, to commit these changes and to create my new labels, all I would have to do is save and in platform re-import. And again, this would commit those changes, create those new labels for me, and ultimately power all of your creative intelligence downstream, all in a singular place. So again, that consistency is here at the advertiser level for your all of your creatives. So now that we've taken a look at sort of how we can manage and curate the taxonomy, ultimately the next question is, that's great, but how do we actually activate this and label the considerable amount of creatives that we have across all of our channels? So for that, I'm going to navigate to our creative manager. And this is where all of our creative production takes place in Flashtalking. So let's look around this library really quick just to kind of get our bearings. In this example library, we have a couple of creatives to play with. They're across, various formats and channels. So we have, a display creative here, a vast creative, and a couple of social creatives as well. Some of these have what we call at Flashtalking versions, which are dynamic variations of a singular concept. And we can see here it's notated by this little lightning bolt. So in this display creative, as an example, we have elements like the CTA and the headline and the car model that are dynamic and ultimately being optimized against one another once served within specific audiences, which we'll talk about a little bit more a bit later on. So that brings us to that third challenge that Alexa had called out earlier in the presentation, which is that unsustainable level of labor required for creative insights. The question is, great, I have a tailored taxonomy, but now how do I make the assignment of all of that data to the creatives and versions manageable? And that's where our creative labels and creative auto classification really come into play. So creative labels are how the labels from your taxonomy are associated to creatives and versions. And again, in the spirit of sort of complete control and flexibility, like we have in all parts of our platform, on the part of the user, these labels can be either assigned, to creatives and versions by users in our platform, so manually by a human, or you can leverage our AI-based auto classification service and have those labels automatically applied for you. What's great about both of these is that they can be used together if needed. So if you need kind of that hybrid approach of labeling, some items by your team, or potentially having part of it done by AI, that's absolutely supported here. It's really based on what your team needs and how it would work best for you. So first, let's kind of look at how we would manually assign creative labels. So Alexa kind of showed how those can be assigned directly in the platform, but we also have the ability to label in mass via spreadsheet. So if I open up our creative label export, this is available at the creative level and at the version level. So you can label at both levels. So here we can assign additional labels as we need. And we can also see what was previously assigned by other users and also what has been set by auto classification. So we can see here each line represents a unique label and creative combination. So for instance, with our Facebook image creative, we have 13 different labels assigned, where we have things like the background scenery, what the copy of the CTA is, the logo, type, placement, etc. So to add additional labels, it's as easy as adding a new line, a new row to this spreadsheet. So we'll switch over here to the available labels really quick to kind of give you a sense of how this is set up. So this sheet is the taxonomy for the brand that's associated with that creative library. So again, this is your unique taxonomy that you're managing, and it's what's powering your labeling downstream. So as you make modifications to your taxonomy at that advertiser level, the latest version will always be available for teams in Creative Manager automatically. So let's add a new line here. Let's say for our vast creative, we wanted to add a new label, right? So we'll copy this. And let's say, we want to add amusement park. That sounds fun. From here, it's as easy as copying and pasting. And from there, we would set this as user set. So again, these were all auto-classified, meaning our AI technology assigned them, and this one has been user. From there, I can save. And to commit these, it's as easy as importing your creative labels here in the platform as well. So now that we've covered manual labeling, let's talk about our AI-based auto classification engine. And this is really where we're putting AI to work and cutting down the number of man hours that are needed for the structured creative insights that marketers need and want. So with a click of a button, you can send creatives and versions to our auto classification system, and it will recognize and tag all of the labels from your taxonomy that match that creative. So the background scenery, logo, text, any of the items labeled as trained in your taxonomy are going to be available for classification. That also includes all of the verticalized and custom advertiser specific items. So Alexa gave this example earlier, but if you're an automotive client, you can train the classification service to actually pick up on your specific models. And ultimately, they would classify those for your brand specifically. And again, this is across channels. So you can use this technology to classify open web, social, video creatives, giving you the ability to have that holistic view on creative insights across channels with the consistency of that taxonomy backing it up. So let's check out the process for sending for classification. I'm going to navigate into the version library. Again, you can send creatives and or versions for classification. Here in the version library, we can select the versions we'd like to send for classification, and with a click of a button, we'll send for classification. So from here, it'll take a little bit for the classification service to return some results for us, but we can see here that it's in progress. In the interest of time, let's pull up really quick what some of the results are. So we can see here the vast amount of elements that were tagged for these versions. So again, each line represents a version and a label that was returned from the classification service. So for this one version, we had 26 labels returned. So again, where historically teams might have focused on 4 to 6 categories of items to tag, our AI has tagged any element in the creative. So you aren't limited on where you can get those learnings downstream. So on that note, it brings us to our last challenge, which is the analysis paralysis. And really, this is the notion of, all of this data is wonderful, highly valuable, of course, but who has the time in the team to actually sift through it and make something actionable out of it? And, for us, we believe that the solve for this is twofold. The first being, you have to make the data readily available and easily understandable in reports for teams that are reviewing the creative performance. The second is we have to take those insights that we're finding on the top performing creative content and automatically optimizing creatives based on those highest performing elements. So for that first piece, we developed the Creative Insights dashboard. And so Alexa had showed this quickly, but I wanted to bring it up again because it's an important tool that we offer for really digging into these newfound insights. And it's a digestible way to really understand the impact of each of the creative elements without having to have any data processing prehand. So the dashboard allows for seeing creative label data broken out by either your custom audiences or by Claritas Prisma segmentation. You can also filter down to specific categories and labels and check out the performance of different metrics as well. And of course, for anybody who's looking for deeper insights, you can download and export to Excel as needed. The second piece I mentioned, and really the last thing that I'll cover before I hand it back to Alexa and to Aaron for a quick wrap up, is creative auto optimization, and specifically the optimizing based on creative content we're tagging here. So our creative auto optimization solution uses neural net technology to look at really the performance of all creative labels for a given audience and will automatically optimize to the content that is resonating and is most relevant to the audience at that moment. So with auto optimization based on these creative labels, we create that powerful feedback loop to ensure that your media really is working the best for you at that moment in time for your audience, while also surfacing that in reporting so teams can continue to iterate their creative strategies and create more of what your consumers are really looking for. So with that, I'll hand it back to Alexa. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Becky. I hope it's apparent to you all that our creative intelligence solution was really designed with you in mind. So let's go ahead and connect insights to action, and let's do that together. Let us alleviate your lack of consistency with our creative taxonomy, and let us put an end to your endless contemplation with our creative labels. Let us eliminate your unsustainable labor with auto classification, and let us ease your analysis paralysis with creative insights. So we can help you focus on the important things that drive your business. Forget about the tedious and complicated tasks. We'll handle that. Invest your time back into your brand identity, your creative strategy, your content development, and your design. Together, we'll uncover the creative intelligence that 91% of you are searching for. Thanks. I'm going to pass it back to Aaron to wrap us up.
All right. Thank you, Alexa and Becky. Some great sort of practical tips there. We did have a question come through the chat about how the media agency team would traffic all this. They said they've scratched the surface with creative personalization, but it still generates individual line items, which to them sort of defeats the purpose of the dynamic capabilities. So that's a great question and a common challenge that we have solved for. So Flashtalking has integrations with DSPs, the social platforms, Google Campaign Manager, and of course through Mediaocean Prisma. So the trafficking is automated. All the line items pass through seamlessly, and this saves our clients hours and hours in the process with their workflow. So definitely encourage you to reach out to our teams and get a detailed demo. And now, as promised, I do have a few parting gifts for our attendees before we close. A few pieces of content, some events, and then some swag. So first, I want to highlight our new website, flashtalking.com. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, give it a quick spin. Beyond just the cool look and feel and branding, there's a ton of information about our various solutions, a breakdown by industry vertical, a blog series on our Flashtalking framework, if you remember Grant's section, sort of the create, automate, activate, iterate flow, we've broken that all down. And then we have a killer creative showcase where you can actually see assets and results that we've delivered for our clients. So please do check that out, flashtalking.com. Next up, we have 2 new reports that we've licensed from Gartner and we've made available for our community. So these would normally cost thousands of dollars to download through Gartner, but you can use these QR codes to get them free on our website. The first is the hype cycle for digital advertising, and that's available on the Mediaocean site. As you might guess, it has generative AI at the peak of inflated expectations. The second is a deeper dive on anthropomorphizing AI. Say that 10 times fast. All right, I'm going to try. Anthropomorphizing AI, anthropomorphizing AI, anthropomorphizing. All right, stop. And basically what that means, it's describing human characteristics to get your desired output from the AI. So that one's available on the Flashtalking site. Snap the code or check the links in the chat and it'll take you directly there. Next, for those looking to go deep on social and understand how our platform enables creative personalization within the walled gardens, we have an event series called Social Foundations that you're invited to register for. We're hosting them. These are in-person events in 4 cities, London, Chicago, New York, and Milan. Each one has its own code and landing page. The agenda is pretty similar across the events, and we have our partners from Snap and LinkedIn participating, and our headline sponsor is TransUnion, and they're going to talk about how their audience graph sort of underpins our solution and enables cross-platform identity resolution. So great opportunity to gather with colleagues, learn a little about the innovations in the paid social space, and have some fun too. So each session, I think, will be followed by a happy hour, and the entire day is at no cost to our community. So please do hit those landing pages to register and indicate your interest. And then finally, I know you've all been watching the logo animating in the background here, or on my closet door, or on my chest. We would love to ship you one of these cool shirts and the cool Flashtalking rocket pen that kind of has each of the 4 colors here. Super fun. Hit the QR code. We'll put a link in the chat. We're happy to ship these out at no cost. We'll send them directly to your house while supplies last. So submit your request, and we'd love to see you sporting the swag on social. Use the hashtag FlashTalkingFresh, and there'll be some extra prizes for the folks who get the most engagement. And with that, we'll close. I want to thank you all for attending. Our next webinar in the Mediaocean Current series will be focused on social, and so we're excited to have you join us for that. Stay tuned on email and, of course, social for all the details. We'll also send a recording of this webinar to everybody who registered, and we look forward to seeing you online, out in the real world, wherever you are, sporting your merch. Did I mention that we're on Threads now? So check us out, Flashtalking on the Threads app as well. Thank you all. Have a great day or evening or night, depending on where you are in the world. Bye-bye.